It finally happened. Drew McIntyre joins the Judgment Day. Or did he? We're going to talk about that in just a little bit, but for those who missed it on WWE Raw, the visual was highly impactful because Drew McIntyre cost Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes the WWE Undisputed Tag Team Championships. And the visual aspect of this was incredibly strong because when Drew McIntyre walked up the ramp, he shook hands with Rhea Ripley. Now, this was actually a really good moment because earlier in the night, there was a promo battle between the War Games competitors, and Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso and everybody, all the baby faces, were picking fun at the Judgment Day about who the leader was. And Damian Priest said that he was the leader, and he got the eye roll from Finn Balor. The Judgment Day wasn't too happy about that. And then, of course, throughout the night, the Judgment Day, you know, they created this to become a story. It's a part of the story. Obviously, it's furthering the story of Damian Priest eventually being kicked out of the Judgment Day. But what's really interesting here is that Rhea Ripley was the one found shaking hands with Drew McIntyre. And just keep in mind, several weeks ago, maybe even a month ago or so, Drew McIntyre and Rhea Ripley were in the background of a backstage talk segment where they were seen talking. So obviously WWE has been developing and crafting this heel turn from Drew McIntyre. And it kind of got me thinking there's two ways that WWE can go about this. One, kick out Damian Priest and replace him with Drew McIntyre. Or two, Drew McIntyre is now officially a heel who hasn't joined the Judgment Day. And we're going to get to that part in a second. I want to talk to you guys about Damian Priest and in regards to how he can be booted from the group. And I think this really stems from a variety of things. Damian Priest believes that he is the leader of the Judgment Day. And he hasn't really said it until last night's episode of WWE Raw. But Damian Priest is the reason why the Judgment Day has dissension. And then the group always finds its way back together, feeling stronger and more dominant than ever. With Damian Priest having this intuition that he is the leader, it makes me believe that the group will at some point be fed up with him and turn on him. And if you've been following closely to the story, that is very logical and it makes a lot of sense considering how they have kind of built up the dissension within the group. But that leads me to how they booed him. And I think it's quite simple. Dominic Mysterio is carrying his own weight around because he's got the North American Championship. JD McDonough is officially in the group, a decision that was made by Damian Priest. But let's just face it, JD McDonough has more of an incentive to want Finn Balor in the group than he would want to have Damian Priest in the group. So obviously when it comes from a decision-making standpoint, JD McDonough would not align with Damian Priest, he would align with the rest of the group. Rhea Ripley is pretty much the clear-cut leader of the group, whether or not it's being told to you. We know that Rhea Ripley is the one who keeps the group orchestrated, keeps them organized, keeps them dominant, and keeps them focused. So at what point does Judgment Day decide to screw over Damian Priest? It's when Damian Priest no longer offers value to the group. And that, my friends, is all within due time, because I believe when Damian Priest cashes in his Money in the Bank, he will fail his cash-in. And if Damian Priest fails his cash-in, there is no reason for the Judgment Day to keep him. I feel like WWE is telling a very intricate story with Damian Priest. Right now, he is valuable to the group. But what happens when he's no longer valuable? This guy believes he's the leader. He believes he's the best one in the group. But now when he loses Money in the Bank, he has nothing to show for it. He's not a world champion, right? So at that point of the game, it is obviously clear that they will turn on him. And how they go about turning on him will change everything for the Judgment Day, because if Drew McIntyre is aligned with the Judgment Day, it could be a very, very, very good feud between a babyface Damian Priest and a heel Drew McIntyre. Especially if WWE goes the route of Drew McIntyre being the one to dethrone Seth Rollins. Because if Drew McIntyre dethrones Seth Rollins with the help of Judgment Day, he will become everything that Damian Priest wanted to be but couldn't be. And I think that is something that is incredibly significant in terms of storytelling. And I think it is something incredibly significant for Drew McIntyre, who has been in a situation where, truth be told, the babyface act got very stale. So I believe Drew McIntyre will be a world champion. And I believe that Drew McIntyre will be part of Judgment Day. Now, let's say my theory is incorrect, and that's always a good possibility. That's what makes wrestling fun. We love to throw out scenarios, especially me from a creative standpoint. That is why I love wrestling. I also love the idea of Drew McIntyre not joining the Judgment Day. I love the idea of Drew McIntyre basically giving the middle finger to the Judgment Day, right? I could see Drew McIntyre being an all-out heel, the Scottish psychopath, one that aligns with absolutely nobody. I could see him going on an absolute tear. Screw the baby faces, screw the heels, screw the Judgment Day. I'm doing this on my own. And if Drew McIntyre was incredibly smart, let's say he uses Judgment Day to get back as Seth Rollins and win that World Heavyweight Championship. Let's just imagine that to be a scenario. I think it would be a really cool idea for Drew McIntyre to get the help from the Judgment Day and then give him the middle finger and move on from them as well, hitting Dominic Mysterio with a Claymore kick, JD McDonough, whatever it may be. Now, Drew McIntyre going back to being the Scottish psychopath allows him to be the top guy on WWE Raw with no affiliation with everybody or anybody just chilling in the back, right? He's got no friends at that point. He's losing everybody. But he will have the one thing that he wanted really, really bad, which was the World Heavyweight Championship, something that he wasn't able to do as a good guy. This is why storytelling is so incredibly important on WWE television. I understand people are like, oh, well, the crowd's not reacting or this and that, whatever. My enjoyment doesn't come from other people enjoying it. My enjoyment comes from me personally enjoying the storylines myself and watching storylines progress and watching character progression. That is what interests me. And some of these things are not things that you could pick up watching live in attendance. Sometimes you might not even be able to pick them up from watching the television show. But I will tell you, from what I have seen, WWE has something cooking here. And I don't want it to get lost on anybody's mind that this could be a very, very massive storyline, whichever way they choose to go. Damian Priest leaving the Judgment Day makes a lot of sense. He is going to be a fantastic babyface in this company. But if they want to keep him heel, if they want to keep him with the Judgment Day, he does an amazing job. If you want Drew McIntyre to be in the Judgment Day, I think my scenario that I mentioned earlier works incredibly well. I think it also does a lot of great things for Damian Priest as he gets kicked out. But let's say they don't go with that option. Let's say WWE goes with Drew McIntyre being a heel that destroys absolutely everybody and anybody in sight. Then it makes Drew McIntyre the guy who has a huge target on his back and everybody will want to go after him. You might see unlikely alliances. You really might see that happen. Imagine the idea of people, an enemy of my enemy can be a friend. And you never know what you see. You could potentially see Cody Rhodes align with Judgment Day for a one-off. Whoever it may be. That's the beauty of storytelling. There's a lot of ways for WWE to make this happen. Is Drew McIntyre in the Judgment Day? I have no idea, but good golly gosh, do I love this story.